Hey everyone, Arthur here with another bunch of Switch hidden gems to inflate your game wish lists even more and hurt your wallets even more. Sorry about that. Lots of beautiful games here, so stick around and grab a snack or something. This is the 7K subs special video and I'll be giving away 3 copies of a game this time for 3 different winners. So check out the closing bit for the details on how to participate. No need to rush, the giveaway will be taking place a couple of weeks after this video is out. So that's it for the intro, let's get to the list. Welcome to the channel, this is From the Void. This first game is a work of art and it's a tragedy that it isn't as famous as it deserves. Talking about Creaks. What a beautiful game, Creaks. Every location is painstakingly detailed, much like a painting, and the gameplay is also intrinsically well made, especially in the animations for each thing you do. This game is from the same developer of Machinarium, which is a more well-known game I feel like, but this is to me far superior, and probably because of the Machinarium heritage, many will call Creaks a point-and-click adventure like that game, but I beg to differ. This is much more a puzzle platformer to me, and what a great puzzle gameplay we have here. Although you don't jump in this game, you use ladders and can drop down to floors below, so platforming plays a big role in finding a way to fool the many different guard creatures that try to impede your progress. You will be turning a lot of levers and pressing buttons to turn things on and off, especially lights that can make creatures change shapes, which is another interesting and creative idea I love about Creaks. And there's a lot more to love here. One of the main aspects is the music. It's not only filled with inspiring melodies, but they evolve as you progress in each puzzle. It creates a fantastic feeling, you have no idea. Playing this game is wonderful. Try it out if you haven't yet. Creaks, it gets substantial discounts that make it practically a steal. This next one is among my favorites on today's list. What a surprising and creative game. Wall World. Okay, this is really something else. Let's start with the story. You're part of a society that lives hanging off of an immense, seemingly infinite wall that stretches to all sides as far as the eye can see. Exploring the wall beyond the protection of the town is extremely dangerous because of the insanely hostile creatures called the Zyrex. However, searching the wall is necessary to scavenge for resources, and that's where you come in. You climb up or down the wall with the help of a very cool machine named the Robo Spider. The game is divided into 2 different gameplay sections. First, you mine for resources, which is more fun than it looks because you have meaningful decisions to make. There is a strong need to optimize the scavenging, and you need to always keep an eye out for the monster meter in purple right there, because when it's full, it's time for the other gameplay. So you need to hurry back to your spider machine, back to the wall surface, then optionally spend some of your resources to upgrade your weapons and gear, then fend off against increasingly threatening waves of creatures. This part of the game is a total blast, seriously. You start off slow and your weapons are weak, but the game has a lot in store for you to unlock and upgrade, but for that you need to find all the stuff. Mining is not only about resources but also the new weapons, which are awesome, like this one that throws a volley of grenades, or this other one that causes a plasma ball to electrocute all enemies on its path, and several more. It's pretty cool. You also find lore about the world and important items you can carry over to the next run, cause yeah, this is a roguelike, and a freaking freaking fantastic one. All the weapons and upgrades reset on the next run, but the progression you do carry over feels incredibly meaningful. By mining, you gain the main currency, which you use for several permanent upgrades, capable of completely modifying the gameplay going forward. The objective of climbing up or down the wall is incredibly enticing. You actually have to decide if you're trying to go upwards or downwards, each leading to a completely different outcome, by the way, shedding light on why the wall exists and how it was raised. The premise is so cool, I love it so much. The gameplay loop is super fun. There is a counter that upon reaching 0, this happens. I love the pixel art graphics here and how the camera pans out a lot during the combat. The controls and especially the gameplay balance and design are simply superb in Wall World. I mean, long story short, this is a phenomenal game, seriously. Highly addictive. I couldn't wait to get back to it. So happy I found this. So do try it out even if you're not big on roguelikes. This is just a great game and not too expensive either. The full price is more than fair. Next is the absolutely unique Chants of Sennaar. First of all, how beautiful is this game, right? The colors, locations and architecture, as well as the music are striking and gorgeous. And Chants of Sennaar also stands out a lot in the gameplay department. This is a puzzle game, but a lot of it revolves around figuring out the language spoken in this place, so you can piece together the story, which is intriguing as well, revolving around religion, social classes and oppression. By observing signs, paintings and talking to people, you'll have to figure out the meaning of each cipher. This may sound too hard or even maybe too boring, but it's so engaging and cool once you start doing it. Of course, you gotta be a puzzle fan, but if you are, this is a treat. It does start off easy. The more simple words like you, me, open, close are straightforward to figure out, but soon it becomes tricky in a great way. You also solve other kinds of puzzles, exploring the beautiful locations, and even do some slight stealth mini-games here and there. Chants of Sennaar is really something else, such a treasure of a game. I hope this gets a lot more recognition because it really deserves it. This next one is lovely and I never hear anyone talking about it. I think it's extra obscure, which is such a travesty. We're taking a look at Smushi Come Home. Oh, what a delight. You are in for a treat if you go for this game. Smushi Come Home is a traditional style 3D platformer that would fit the N64 library nicely, though it doesn't go for the N64 aesthetic. But the gameplay does remind me of such games of that era. You talk to NPCs who need your help with something, you explore the lovely sandbox areas full of cleverly placed collectibles and platforms that will test your pathfinding skills. There are little mini games to change the pace in a great way. You collect upgrades to your climbing and gliding skills, which are fantastic to use. The whole game nails the controls, they're perfect, and you do all that in the hopes of returning Smushi to his home and family in a tiny island in the middle of a lake. It's a wonderful ride all the way through. This is a 10 out of 10 3D platformer, impossible not to love. It's a perfect fit for the Switch, so yeah, if you enjoy this kind of game, Smushi is a total no-brainer. Go right ahead. Next is the criminally overlooked What Lies in the Multiverse. This one is a puzzle platformer, but don't be fooled by its approachable look. This game is both very challenging in terms of gameplay, as well as kinda dark in terms of story and humor. All that results in a great surprising game that I'm happy I found. As the name suggests, there are multiple universes here, and that is incorporated directly into the gameplay. You can switch back and forth between dimensions, where things are similar yet very different. The game asks the player frequently to change in between universes while moving, so you have to consider your trajectory and momentum, which translates to an engaging gameplay as well as a very challenging one. You can expect some deviously hard puzzles here. This is a great game of its kind, and the characters, story and humor are on point too. The music is also great. Check it out, What Lies in the Multiverse, a solid game. Moving on to Brutal Unworthy. Okay, this is a side-scroller Souls-like Metroidvania through and through. It has all of those three things very much. The big interconnected Metroidvania map, the brutal difficulty of enemies and bosses, the fact that you lose your sins, the equivalent of souls, when you die, and have one chance to grab them back. This feature is actually further amplified like it wasn't grueling enough, because you can only spend sins to level up your stuff once you beat a new boss, so you keep adding more and more sins, and the fear of losing it all gets really intense. So yeah, you know what kind of game this is. There have been tons of these in recent years, but Unworthy shines on several of these aspects. The Metroidvania map is awesome to explore. They nailed the traversal aspect. It goes really well with the high difficulty of enemies. The combat is another highlight. You have several weapons to choose from, unlocked one by one, but you don't have a whole lot of moves for each one, even in late game, which is great actually, because you get used to all of them. So combat is much more about figuring enemy patterns and exploiting their weaknesses. Great game for Souls fans for sure, one of the best I've played, plus the look of the game also really fits the somber atmosphere and brutal difficulty. So yeah, check it out, Unworthy. Moving on to Switch console exclusive EQQO. There is a reason why this is only found on the Switch other than mobile phones. This game is better with touch controls, which you can do by playing the Switch handheld, and it does the touch stuff in a great and meaningful way. It can be played with a controller as well, which made it easier for me to capture, so that's how I did most of it, but it plays much better with the touch controls. After playing EQQO, the gameplay actually felt to me like what I would expect point-and-click games to have evolved into. The scenarios are 3D, lively and detailed. You can freely look around, click where you want your character to move into, interact with objects and parts of the environment, and even change perspectives. It changes the vibe of a point-and-click game quite nicely. The story here is pretty interesting too. You are the spiritual guide of the boy EQQO, who is blind and is tasked with a very important objective: to bring the egg of the god snake to safety. The whole world depends on it apparently, which is a heavy burden on a child, let alone a blind one. So you gotta help him. You need to search the environment for things you can interact with, to solve puzzles and open the way, as well as fend off against some pesky creatures that will try to steal the egg, and you do that by throwing stuff at them before they do. The novelty of the touch controls coupled with the detailed 3D environments gives this a fresh take that I really enjoyed. Quite a hidden gem, probably inspired on EQQO. The name alone indicates that to me, but also having to care for another being, just like that game, that sometimes you have to leave behind, and the entire graphical style also strongly reminds me of EQQO in a great way. I loved it. EQQO, man, give it a shot. It's one of the cheapest on the list because it's a short game, but totally worth it. Not too long ago, I covered a remake of an Atari game called Yar's Revenge. Pretty great game, by the way, check it out. It's on my ongoing coverage of the Xbox 360 closing marketplace. But that was not the only time Atari tried reviving this obscure and underappreciated franchise. Meet Yar's Recharged. While the Xbox 360 remake tried bringing the franchise from the Atari 2600 straight into the 3D realm, 5 generations later no less, Recharged tries an approach much more faithful to the original. It divides itself into tiny stages, the size of one screen, and it's a twin-stick shooter, which feels awesome to play and fits the Yard universe very well. I love the graphics here and the gameplay loop, which is a fresh take on this kind of game. You have to destroy the big robot things, but to do so you need to shoot it twice in a row with a huge machine that appears in the far left once you gather enough energy by destroying shield walls and smaller machines. With that, the gameplay feels rather dynamic, in a great way for a shoot 'em up. There is an arcade mode and missions mode, and they're both satisfying and deep. Great game, Yars Recharged, for someone looking for a different kind of shooter. It's also not very pricey, especially with the half-off sale, and if you'd like it physical, it's in the Atari Recharged Volume 2 compilation along with 3 other games. Next, let's dive into the mesmerizing world of Sephonie. If you've played Anodyne 2, a game I covered in a previous video, you will notice a lot of similarities because this is from the same devs. They have a very peculiar style, their worlds have an organic quality to them, they feel believable and not video gamey in that way. The color palettes, atmosphere and music are somewhat melancholic, and the gameplay is strongly focused on exploration of incredible alien-like worlds. And that's what you get here in Sephonie, which is the name of this very weird island with odd creatures and a sprawling complex of caverns. The strongest gameplay aspect here is the platforming. Your characters are imbued with some kind of technology that boosts their physical skills, allowing them to run on walls and dash mid-air. The physics and controls are super well done, even if a bit hard to get in the beginning. Soon enough you will be pulling off some impressive platforming maneuvers, and they make great use of it. The platforming is surprisingly challenging, even including some sections with different physics rules. Still, on the gameplay side, that same implant that grants physical augmentations is also used to link with the island's diverse creatures. So you need to explore and find the creatures, and then the actual act of linking is represented by a puzzle minigame, which is pretty cool. Each of your 3 characters has a turn to place together tetrominoes of the same color, which is more fun than it sounds and a great change of pace. So yeah, this game has a lot going for it, and all of it is extremely enjoyable. Sephonie is a great hidden gem, very much worth its price, especially with the half-off discounts it's been getting. Next is probably the most well known on today's list. I remember this getting some good attention when it was announced, then it came out and poof! This is a Juggler's Tale. This game is very artful, and what a cool concept. We're playing a story being told by a marionette puppeteer, so the whole thing is very fourth wall breaking in some pretty unusual ways. The strings of the dolls are accounted for in the physics of the game, meaning you can't pass under things because of them. The puppeteer also breaks the rules of physics frequently, flying the girl over unpassable obstacles. That's not you doing that, but here's the thing, the creatures have free will, but the puppeteer is still in control. He only allows them some freedom. In the beginning you can free a wolf from its strings and it just runs away, so what's up with that? It's a pretty interesting story that keeps you captivated. The gameplay is great. This is a puzzle game mostly with platforming aspects. You can also grab, carry and throw things around, which adds a very nice layer, and like I said, most of the challenge lies in finding out ways to pass underneath things, which makes for some really clever and out-of-the-box puzzles. I love it. Plus the game looks and sounds beautiful. A Juggler's Tale is a mighty fine side-scroller puzzle platformer and deserves a lot more praise, so check it out. It's been out for a while, so it gets substantial discounts. Moving on to Crazy Shmup Blackbird. This is a very seldom spoken of shoot 'em up on the Switch, even though it has a physical version from limited run. This game comes from Onion Games, a studio that hosts the developers of very peculiar games like Dandy Dungeon, Tulip, and Moon, which I talked about a lot in a previous Switch Hidden Gems video. These guys have a very peculiar style. You can spot their games a mile away, and Blackbird is no exception. What a crazy game. Check out the story. You are this girl who walks out of a bar, then suddenly dies on the street, and no one cares apparently. This one guy comes in, pokes her with a stick, and walks away. Disrespect. Then she turns into an egg, hatches into a blackbird, and that's no ordinary blackbird, it's the great mythological calamity blackbird, and now humanity is in trouble. So that's who you are, the mythological calamity. You start destroying everything. Pretty awesome if you ask me. The gameplay is typical side-scroller shooter stuff. You improve your shots by acquiring more and more points, but the game allows you to scroll left or right, you decide. The stage loops around, and the objective is to destroy all the bases that take a lot of shots to take down. This is very similar to Opa Opa from the early Sega systems, for those of you who are familiar with that also very crazy series. Blackbird is a rather approachable shooter, not too bullet hellish, rather short too, and not too hard to beat. But once you do, true mode unlocks, and that's when things get really interesting. Blackbird, great little shooter for sure. I love the graphics and the moody atmosphere here too. It gets half off discounts, which make it very fairly priced, and like I said, it has a limited run physical as well. Moving on to Splendid OMNO. The world of OMNO is the most awe-inspiring thing ever, with so many creatures to find and interact with, lush, vast environments to explore, delightful graphics and color palette, and all amplified by subtle and emotional music that fits the game perfectly, and what we get is a 10 out of 10 in presentation. And the gameplay doesn't lag behind at all. This is a 3D puzzle platformer with several unique and pretty awesome mechanics that go a long way in keeping you amazed throughout the whole experience. You control the last of the staff bearers, who can use his staff in several different ways to traverse the environment, including surfing on it, floating with it, and zip line teleporting it. The animations for each are spectacular, and they are all a joy to make use of, and they're used not only to explore but also to solve the puzzles. This game has no combat. It's all about exploring, finding the objects to open the next area, and cataloging the creatures, which you can do by interacting with them, which I highly recommend doing, though it's optional. I mean, OMNO is simply excellent, and it sometimes gets crazy discounts that make it so cheap it's a steal. Following up with so much more than it seems, Catmaze. Catmaze is a Metroidvania, there's no mistaking it. A huge interconnected map for you to explore freely, filled with all sorts of creatures to defeat. But what makes this stand out among the abundance of Metroidvanias in recent times is how the game keeps evolving and adding new and surprising things all the way non-stop. You attack with familiars, and there are loads of different ones. They can grant melee attacks or widely varied magical abilities. You gain access to a flying broom, cause you're a witch, as well as freaking mounts for some very fun changes of pace. You also have some crazy special skills, and that's on top of the more common Metroidvania stuff like unlocking wall jumps, ground pounds and all that. Pretty great game in my opinion. There are some problems. Some of the characters' drawings feel off. There is the occasional hitbox problem too, but the positives supersede all that easily, with fun boss fights and an ever-changing world that is a joy to explore. It's a rather cheap game too, even at full price, and it also counts with a physical. Next is Raji, an ancient epic. Raji tells the story of the namesake protagonist, who is trying to save her brother from the clutches of demons. She's a normal girl, so she needs the help of the gods to become up to the task. They grant her guidance and powerful godly weapons to aid her in her journey. The graphics in this game, as well as the locations, and to be honest, the entire presentation are jaw-dropping. I love the Hindu mythology that the game explores, and that's not the only thing that sets it apart. The main gameplay focus is on the combat, which may seem like a God of War hack and slash, but really isn't. You have to find the right weapon for the job, as well as make good use of your environment to stand a chance against a large group of demons, because Raji is an acrobat, and that's used in the combat very well, but that also makes it much harder than it looks. So there is a need to adapt your gameplay instincts to the need of this game in particular, and for that reason I have to say that many people may not enjoy it, but if you like a challenge that requires you to learn a new approach to combat, this is a treat. People also complain about how the game is linear, with not a lot of incentive to explore, and while that is true, I didn't mind it. Not every game has to have it in my view, and Raji offers a lot of interesting features already. The full price is up there at $24.99, but it gets hefty discounts, and there's also a beautiful physical version from Premium Edition as usual. Next is a pretty different run and gun couple of games in third person. This is the Thunder Kid series. This is pretty simple but also very well done. It's Mega Man in third person in a pure sense, meaning not trying to increment the gameplay with anything else like we got on the Mega Man Legend games, which are great by the way, but this is not that. It's run forward, gun enemies down, avoid their shots, and do some devious platforming too. That's it. When I saw this, it looked easy. Maybe that's your impression too, but the game gets hard very early on. There is the hardship of knowing exactly where the projectiles are in the 3D perspective. Sections are filled to the brim with enemies shooting with wildly different patterns, and the bosses have a lot of health and always change their behaviors when they get too close to dying, making these two games rather tough. The sequel is more of the same, but polishes a lot from the original. Locations are more interesting, the platforming feels better, there are more mini bosses, and especially the soundtrack is much better. These are very obscure, low poly run and gun games with a different take on the genre that I really appreciated. Like I said, they are simple, don't go expecting a lot, but very enjoyable if you like what you see. They're also not expensive, even on full price, and discounts make them a bargain. Moving on to the delightful A Good Snowman is Hard to Build. Yeah, this is so nice. It's a puzzle game where you have to build snowmen by rolling their three parts on top of each other. The rules here are what make this game genius as a puzzler. Most times you need to increase the size of the snowballs. They're many times tiny and you have to roll them over snow patches on the ground to gather more snow. The thing is that they only have three sizes: the tiny one for the head, the middle part, and the big one. So if you keep rolling big snowballs over snow patches, they will not increase in size but will remove the snow from the ground. So you have to use the big ones to clear the way for the smaller ones. You can't pull snowballs, only push, and you can place them on top of each other only if the top one is smaller, even if it's out of order, because then you can push it back off later. And that's it, simple and easy to grasp rules that makes this game engaging and clever, requiring a new kind of thinking to solve the puzzles. Pretty cool if you like these kinds of games. Check out A Good Snowman is Hard to Build and give them lots of hugs and feel better about yourself, guaranteed. The full price is kinda high, but discounts make it much cheaper. Next is chill and amusing Rain on Your Parade. This one is unusual and lots of fun, great idea too. You're a happy little cloud and the main thing you do is to rain on the dumb little humans below. So there's a lot of funny causing of distress here, like ruining people's weddings, but also for good causes like putting out fires. Each stage presents varied challenges, including hidden ones, so you're always doing something different. It's far from being a deep game, but a fun distraction for sure, with the lowest stakes and need for involvement possible. It gets half off discounts, which make it very cheap, and there's a lovely premium edition physical if you can find that. Okay, this next one is extra special. I mean, look at these graphics. This is a work of art, truly. The gameplay is slow or even boring for some, but this is absolutely a worthwhile game, so very much. There is a lot to explain here, so stick around. We're talking about O. Okay, the entire presentation in this game is first class, 10 out of 10. Each stage is a painting. The music is also beautiful, with inspirations in many different ethnicities. So for art lovers, this is a full dish, and for that alone, I think O is worth playing. However, this is also a game, and in the gameplay department, this has very little of actual meaningful gameplay. You know, the kind that requires the player any kind of skill or problem-solving abilities. There's very little of that. It's much more about exploration and a lot of backtracking, to the point where a good chunk of gamers will get annoyed by. The game is short, it lasts about 1 hour, but you need to finish it no less than 4 times to see the true ending, each time having to pass through all the same scenarios, and especially between playthroughs 1 and 2, most of it is exactly the same, with a lot of repeated dialogue, so it gets rather boring, cause it's always the same idea. Go through the beautiful paintings, side-scroller like, until you find a body of water, then jump in and arrive at a new scene. You have a bunch of stickers you can throw at stuff. If you find a meaningful object and throw the sticker, the sticky will stick and a explanation will be written down. There are hidden objects to be found that way as well. Some are required to progress, so you will find yourself throwing stickers everywhere just in case there's something there. Another gameplay aspect that gets rather boring quickly. And right about now, you must be wondering if I really recommend this game, right? Yeah, I absolutely do. And it's because of the story. This story, man, I have never seen anything like it. It keeps revealing itself little by little and leads to something completely unexpected. With so many layers, it goes really deep. Even the word O is explained, and I was amazed with the outcome of the entire thing. It was beyond impressive, you have no idea. And the fact that I'm making a video about it now brings a whole new significance to the story for me and for all of you that because of this video decide to play O and reach its true ending. I can't say why or how that's possible because that would be a huge spoiler, but I hope this mini review grabs the curiosity of many of you. This is a capital E experience, a truly transcendental story, so if you don't need your games to have deep gameplay, give this a go and stick with it until the true ending. I think it's really worth it. Next up is the most top-down of all top-down games ever, and it's also a pretty badass video game, Devil's Lair Raksasi. How about this point of view, huh? I mean, wow, 90 degrees top down, no excuses. This is an action roguelike. In the beginning you have one character, but as you progress you unlock a whole bunch of other warrior girls that look awesome and play very different from each other according to their main weapons and traits. Each run will have you going from dungeon to dungeon, slaying through all manner of creatures, grabbing many kinds of items and currency that you can use to buy new stuff both temporarily for that run or permanently for that character or all of them. There is a stunning amount of variety and choices to make. It's all very well made and balanced, but the star of the show is the actual combat gameplay because of the insistently mentioned top-down view. This perspective makes the gameplay pretty cool. I loved it. It's easier to grasp than most other action roguelikes, and they did a great job at making it feel right in terms of hitboxes and all that, as well as in the animations of each move. Impressive work was put on this game. There is a tiny bit of loot content too, if that matters to you for better or worse, but it happens only a little bit and mostly when you die, when this happens to the poor girl you choose to slay devils with. But anyway, this is one of my favorites on today's list for sure. Try it out if you like a good action roguelike, Devil's Lair Raksasi, and it also has a very well received DLC for some more gore. We are done with the official 20 hidden gems on the list, but now I'm also including a bonus section with games that for one reason or another don't fit the list, but are still worth a mention for sure. The first one this time is a freaking great game, but it's incredibly short, which will just leave you wanting more. Apple Slash. The price reflects the length, especially on sale, and like I said, this game plays great, very surprisingly so. It's a minimalistic top-down Zelda game with a heavy emphasis on the combat, which feels fantastic. It's fast-paced, dynamic, chaotic in the best ways, with loads of enemies sometimes. It's pretty cool. You also do the usual Zelda thing of finding keys and items to open the way forward, which is cool too, but then, bam! The game is over. It feels like a chapter 1 of sorts. I really hope they are making a full-size game of this because it's a great gameplay. Next is Like No Other, The Legends of the Twin Books. This one looks great, the cartoonish colorful visuals are super pleasant, and it may not look like it at first glance, but this is a point-and-click game. The reason why it's on the bonus section is that this is a very old-school style point-and-click, and I've been feeling like these have become very niche nowadays. I may be wrong, and by old school I mean that it requires manually going through the inventory and using right items in the right places. There are loads of objects you can analyze that have absolutely nothing of importance, leading the main character to repeat the same comments a lot, which can become annoying. So unless you are a big fan of point and click games like Monkey Islands and such, this is not for you. If you are though, which I am, there's a pretty great adventure to unfold here with some clever puzzles to figure out and a lot of exploration in nice looking scenes following the story of an old-timer in a post-apocalyptic world. Next we have a cheap, quick, delightful little throwback game to the Atari era called They Came From the Sky. This one is a reversed Space Invaders game. The exact same thing is happening, aliens are coming from the sky, but instead of having to shoot them down, you are the aliens. And your goal is to abduct as many humans and other earthling creatures as you can before getting hit by a missile or time runs out, depending on if you chose endless mode or time attack. Both are great if you enjoy arcade games, but because of the size of the game and how niche I think it is, I decided to include it in the bonus section. Great little game though, with new flying saucers to unlock that have different traits, nice looking pixel art and color palette, and the short lasting gameplay is compensated by the super cheap prices, especially on sale. Next up is one I have covered twice already, and it may not be a hidden gem anymore cause Limited Run picked it up. I don't know, you tell me, but the game is awesome. I had to include it in one of these. This is Steel Assault. This game's structure is heavily inspired in Contra games, but your character has a whip instead of a gun, and it's actually amazing how these things go together in this game. Another highlight is the grappling hook that can be used in most surfaces, with which you can create a rope line to hang on to, and the game will force you to use this in many different and clever ways. The gameplay is awesome, and so is the entire presentation, including the music, which is an absolute favorite of mine and the one you're hearing now in this bonus section. But be advised that this is a really short game. If you just want to see the story through on normal mode once, this will last only about 1 hour. So maybe grab it on discount where the price is fair for the digital, or like I said, Limited Run has a physical lot for this one. And that's it for today. Hope you found some great games to add to your list. If you did, let us know in the comments what games did you add to your ever-growing list of games. If you found this useful or entertaining, now is a great time to subscribe. The channel needs a lot more subscribers so that the algorithm likes it. I wouldn't bother you asking for this if it weren't something forced down on all of us by the damn thing, the algorithm. Believe me, if you want to support the channel, I also have a Patreon page. Go give it a check. And now for the details on how to participate on this giveaway. The game I will be giving away is one of the highlights on today's list, Wall World. I'm giving out 3 copies of that game on the Switch. They are all American region, but anyone can create an American account and claim it easy, so no region lock issues, everyone can participate. Now there are gonna be 3 copies, 2 of them I will be giving away here on YouTube. To enter, you need to simply write a comment down in the comments with the words World from the Void. It can be anywhere in your comment. Please check the spelling, because I will be doing a control find mind, and I may miss it if you spell it wrong. And by the way, I will only answer comments from people that participate after the prize draw. That's because answering the comment of the winner is how I tell them that they won. So to avoid confusion, I won't answer anyone that participates until then. So if you want your comment answered, post a different one from the participation comment, if that makes sense. Now, the third copy will be given away through the Discord server. I don't want to force anyone to join Discord to participate, so I'm doing it that way in case you also see a reason to join our cozy Discord server and hang out with other people talking about games. The link to join is in the description, and more details will be given away in the Discord server itself. Alright guys, good luck to all of you. That's it from me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.